Hi everybody, welcome to Fortis and Fide. This is going to be a reaction video on Kanye West, and I'm not really. I listened to some of Kanye West music when I was younger, but I know that he's been through all sorts of crazy turns in regards to his faith, and I think he brought up something. I was watching this interview, something that I think a lot of people struggle with, and I'm not quick to just immediately cast stones at him and judge him because what he's saying I can actually really relate to, and I think a lot of people can. And regardless of what your opinion is of him, he's sometimes he can get pretty crazy, but I do think he's expressing something that a lot of people feel in the spiritual life, and I think it'll be really beneficial for you guys to kind of maybe hopefully you can find this beneficial about my response. If I were to talk to Kanye, what would I say to him, right? So we'll watch the interview together, and I'll give you guys my thoughts.
Man, this is what I'm feeling right now. Are you in that space where you're comfortable enough to say, this is where I am right now? I'm still a man of God. Jesus still is king, but this is vultures right now. This is where I am.
It is, but I have my issues with Jesus. There's a lot of stuff I went through that I prayed and I didn't see Jesus show up. So I had to put my experience in this world, my experience with my children, my experience with other people, my experience with my account, my experience with my brand, and my experience with the level of music that I was dealing with in my own hands. Like a lot of times I just feel like in our society in America, people, Christians, we're depend on Jesus so much that we won't put the word in ourselves. And the main thing that really that I don't rock with is it's just always I'm gonna pray for you. And it's just you can actually physically do something yourself too, more than just pray. And we're so in the.
Okay, that he actually brings up a good point. He actually does, because I do understand where he's coming from. Where if somebody has, for example, let's say somebody is struggling with an illness, right, and you have the means to help them, it's in your finances, you can do it, you have money to do it, but you don't, right, and you say, well, I'll just pray for you, right, and that's not discounting prayer. Prayer is effective, and he actually even says this. I don't know if he meant to say it, but it's both. You do pray and you do works, right? This is kind of similar to prayer and works, right? Or faith and works. You can believe and you can have faith in God, you can worship him, but if you're not working towards your salvation and cooperating with his grace, then what is James? Read the epistle of James, and you're going to see in fact, I think on chapter 2 is about that, right? And I can feel I can understand where he's coming from, where he's praying, and nothing happens, and he thinks, oh, I have to take things into my own hands, right? Now, this isn't the full interview. I might get copyrighted strike if I put out the whole interview. But the full interview, he makes the claim that he is God now, that because he can't rely on Jesus, he can't rely on external power, he has to rely on himself, right? And the funny thing about this is that he's not a full-blown atheist at this point. He's kind of just recognizing that I have to do things myself. And what is the thing that Eve was tempted with? Well, is becoming her own God, right? Same with Adam. They were being tempted to become their own masters of their destiny. And as somebody who did all sorts of manifestation, new age stuff, I can tell you, I had these same thoughts that he did. I had the same thoughts. I thought I couldn't put things in God's hands because things won't happen the way I want them to happen. And I can feel the pain in his voice, and I can see it in his eyes. He's experiencing a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, and I feel for Kanye, because he was at one point very, very humble. He was promoting the gospel. He was very openly about Jesus, and he was very open about it. And I commended him for him. And it was came out of nowhere. It seemed right, and I can feel the pain in his voice. And I think for many of us, we will pray to God and ask him to help us endure our suffering. And sometimes it's not what we had in mind. Sometimes we have to go through suffering and we have to go through hard things, so that way something better will come out the other side. And the problem with that Kanye is experiencing right now, and we all face this, is that sometimes we don't see the big picture, and we sometimes don't have enough faith in God to see his plan play out, right? We don't have faith to be willing to endure the hardship right now to see what comes later. And this is actually perfect timing for Holy Week, right? What is the message of Holy Week? Well, the message of Holy Week is that Jesus, went to the cross. He died for our sins, yes. But it's not the end of the story. Jesus was resurrected on Easter Sunday, and sometimes we forget that. We forget that there is good that comes out of bad. God takes everything that seemingly doesn't seem like it should work, and it works, right? He took Peter, the first pope, someone who denied him 3 times, someone who he literally called Satan at one point, to lead his church, right? Which tells you that God can use the unqualified and make them qualified, right? And for Kanye, he's struggling. He's dealing with some demons, I can tell. He went through like a nasty divorce. Fame and riches will do that to you. And we just got to pray for this man, right? And I'll see what else he has to say. But I think
This mentality, that's all that needs to happen. But we ain't praying our way out of prison. We ain't praying our way out of the abortion clinics. We ain't praying our way to get our land back that was always ours after
so he just mentioned something about abortion clinics. Okay, so praying for somebody has a lot of effect, and I think a lot of people don't really. There's a misunderstanding about prayer, right? Prayer is not like a lottery ticket. It's not like, you put in a certain amount of time, a certain amount of hours, and God's going to give you what you want, right? What prayer is, it's simply relationship. It's communicating, right? It's asking. Now, when you ask someone for something, you're not going to, especially when it comes to God, like what does Jesus say in the Gospels, right? Well, he rewards people based on their faith. And if you are praying for people in an abortion clinic, which I've done, I've gone to pro-life rallies and done stuff like that, and it's awesome. We pray the rosary together and we do that. And on the outside, it might look like we're doing nothing, but what we're doing is that we're asking God to touch people's hearts. We're asking God to touch people's hearts, and we're not going to see that. We're not going to see that. Just like Jesus says with the parable of the seeds, we're not going to see how the seed turns out. Only God will see that. Only God will see if the seed was scattered on the good soil. But how will you know unless you scatter the seeds, right? And I can tell you this, that God, the law of God is written in everyone's hearts. That's what St. Paul teaches us. The law of God is written in everyone's hearts. And when you pray for someone, and when you pray for someone to reconsider their abortion, God's going to nudge at their conscience. We may not see it. They may not show it, right? Because people don't want to show those things. But God will do that. He will nudge at their conscience. He will nudge. He will nudge and give them signs and give them things. And especially if you are following God's commands, like he's going to hear your prayer. He's going to hear your cry, right? And at the end of the day, we got to remember that people have free will. People can do what they want. And that's really what love is. It's letting somebody love you, not because they're forced to, but because they want to, right? And that's the message I want to share with you guys today. Continue to pray for Kanye West. Pray for celebrities. I know that sometimes we look at celebrities, we look at the rich and fame, and we look at like, they have so much. Think of Mark Wahlberg. Look what turnaround he made, right? Think of Jim Caviezel. Like there's actors that can be advocates for the church, and I can tell you that they were prayed for, and they are battling difficult demons, right? Think of the rich man that Jesus met, who Jesus loved, but the rich man was unwilling to give up his possessions, right? And I think for Kanye, what's happening is, it's hard to hear him talk like this, especially after him proclaiming Jesus as God and Lord and doing all that stuff. And I know some people say like maybe it was an act, maybe it was a charade. We don't know his heart. We don't know his soul. We were not in that same environment he is. But continue to pray for celebrities, because think of it this way: when they convert, they have a big impact. Like Joe Rogan, for example. I know that man's a Catholic, or he was a Catholic, and I can tell just watching his interviews with Christians, he's starting to come around. I think he might actually come around at some point, because he seems like a logical dude. He seems like someone who's drawn to truthfulness and honesty, and I think he might come around. And don't give up on Joe Rogan, because if he converts, like if he comes back to the faith and he has that huge platform, it's going to affect a lot of souls. right? And I'm seeing more and more of that happening. I'm seeing actors doing it. I'm seeing, people in high positions doing that. So Kanye can be one of those people, for sure. You just got to keep praying for him. Don't give up. Okay. So hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and God bless.